Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. We are once again back in the car, which means we are doing yet another review. Tonight's film was none other than the latest from Studio Ghibli, right? That's how you pronounce it, Studio Ghibli?
Sure. I hope so, because I've been doing it wrong this whole time.
The Boy and the Heron. We specifically watched the dubbed version because it had this amazing voice cast. It had Christian Bale and Mark Hamill and Florence Pugh and
Willem Dafoe,
Dave Bautista. Anyway, so we just saw that, so we're going to give you guys a quick review. DJ, 1 to 10, what would you rate this film?
6.
Okay, why?
Okay, so I actually wanted to give it a 5 originally, but there's a reason I give it a 6. So, animation-wise, this thing is glorious, like every Studio Ghibli film that's ever been made. The animation is always solid. And they don't do those. Well, they do a little bit, but they don't do like the tricks like you're used to with a lot of the studios where they keep still backgrounds for long periods of time, unless they're really detailed. They call them the Disney of the East. Like they literally are, where they take these gorgeous animated backdrops and lay them out and paint over them and then put characters on. Looks fantastic. The voice acting is fantastic. The acting is fantastic. The animation is fantastic. Everything's fantastic. The story is boring. Well, sort of. Well, we get to spoilers and get more specific, but the reason I give it a lower score is because, especially for a Miyazaki film, I am kind of judging it against other films that they've made and that Studio Ghibli has made. It's just boring through the first hour of the movie is boring. It ramps up quick and it does a lot of cool things, but it's just boring.
Cool. For me now?
Yes, it's your turn.
All right. I also would give this film a 6 out of 10 just based off of its animation, its voice acting, and things like that. However, I might just bump it down to a 5 just because it is probably not only one of the most boring films that we've seen this year, but it's also one of those films that feels really trippy, and there's very little that they do to explain a lot of the stuff that happens. The plot wraps up at the end just to wrap up.
It ends very suddenly.
Yeah, so it drags, and then it's just like, ooh, wrap it up, and then it's done. So overall, fairly boring. I'd say it's a 5 out of 10 for me, 6 out of 10 for DJ. I don't think necessarily you're going to really get much benefit from going to the movie theater and seeing it, just because we saw it the best screen that we could, best sound system that we could. And to be honest, this is one of those films that if you really like Studio Ghibli, you'll probably like watching it at home, at your own pace. Otherwise, it really doesn't benefit much from the theater experience, I have to say. So not a recommend to see in theaters, but if you like Studio Ghibli, wait for it to come out on streaming. It'll probably be worth it then.
Fair enough.
Well, what do you think? Do you think that theater made it for you?
I mean, it looked gorgeous, but that's about it. The music is really good.
Until the parakeets theme, in which case it's literally the beginning of Baldur's Gate. Because it literally ba 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 ba, and then it goes ba ba instead of ba ba ba. Anyway, I think we're good to move on to the spoilers. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, before we move on to the spoilers, if you like these review videos, be sure to leave us likes, subscribe, because we do these every single week. Otherwise, share us with your friends and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And with that, spoilers. I cannot believe that the climax of the film not only is the great uncle revealed to be none other than Luke Skywalker, but the little girl is none other than Surae Skywalker. Girl boss of Studio Ghibli.
It literally
and they have
was.
An epic lightsaber fight with Dave Bautista's.
It literally was like Luke, like old Luke from the new Star Wars. That's all Okay, so the biggest thing about this film for me is that the first The very opening of the film is interesting. It opens with a bang.
Yes, it does.
There's a massive, like, heart-wrenching, like, moment of, like, dread and a death, like, right in the beginning. And the main character, like, rushes to save his mom, and it ends in the fire. And then it jumps 2 years later, and it's him going out to the country. There's a little bit of exposition, but it's done well. Where he meets his new mom, which is his aunt.
Yes.
His dad marries his wife's sister, and they're having a baby. And so he gets dumped that this is the new mom. He's like, I'm gonna be your new mom, and I'm having a baby. And so it's all this stuff all at once, and so he's feeling dejected and broken, and it's a ton of metaphor to that, and he's just and it's in the middle of the war, and it's like all this stuff is happening, and he's just like overwhelmed emotionally, physically, everything. So that's the start of the film.
Right.
And up until the point where, like, he gets in the fight with the kids, and like he's trying to get to school, and he hits himself with a rock in the head. There's some interesting moments, but there's long periods where nothing happens. And I don't mean nothing like soft nothing, like where it's like giving you time to think. It's just nothing.
It's just beautiful shots with some
it's with the kid just staring off in the distance. There's like 5 minutes of him just staring.
That's true.
And over and over again. And that doesn't do anything for there's like, they could have cut a ton out of the beginning of the film. They could have
the middle of the film.
They could have shortened, and it's as it progresses to the end, the wide, slow parts get smaller, but they never go away.
Right.
It takes a long time for them to get to the other world part, but they first foreshadow it and kind of allude to it pretty early on, and then it just takes forever for them to bite on it.
Right.
And which would be fine if they showed more of the boy's trauma, but they don't. They show these great scenes where he gets in a fight with kids at school and he hurts himself, but he just doesn't do anything other than that. There's just long moments where you meet these weird characters that don't matter to the film.
Yeah.
You meet all the old ladies, and only one of them matters.
It's true. There's like 8 of them for some reason. They all look.
You know nothing
strange
about them.
Yeah.
And Studio Ghibli does this a lot, and it works in a lot of other films. Like Spirited Away has tons of characters that pop up and disappear, but they're also not important. They're just background ambiance, and it's character driven. It's fun. And this one, they introduce these characters and make them look like they're important, and then just discard them. And they do that over and over and over again. Look at all these interesting people. Oh, that's cool. What's their story? Nope. Okay, that's cool.
And that's pretty much the majority of the film, to be honest. Like, they introduce really important characters really quickly and get to the point where their story ends almost immediately.
Yes.
Like the king of the parakeets. He literally appears, and then probably 10 minutes later is when the entire world crumbles to bits.
Yeah. He comes in really late, and he doesn't really do anything until the end. And so you don't really know anything about him or understand what is. I mean, the visual show is important,
yeah. But
it's like, why is he only here now? Like, why wasn't he here earlier? And you have the girl, his mom. She's really interesting, and it alludes to the fact that she went into the other world, and so they are at different time periods, so you know that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do a lot with that until right at the end, when it's like they're all going back to their own times.
Yeah.
And then the old lady's like, how do you know my name? And it's the younger her, and then she goes back to the world, but she's like, I've always been here as far as I can remember, but then she goes back through the door too. There's these weird, confusing points where it like literally like blows out its own lore that it's created. It's like, why did you even leave that lore in there if you're going to do anything with it?
Well, the other thing too is it creates really the strangest of paradoxes, because it makes it so that the old woman is very, very aware of this other world. And because she is so aware of this other world, why would she try to stop our main character from going back into the world to cause all of these events to come into place? Why would she be so preventative of him doing that? A lot of this film really struggles from the fact that it has these high fantasy points. It has these really complex, interesting, like could be very interesting things happening in the world, and it works very intricately, but then it doesn't do anything to explain the world. So you're literally left with very minimal detail on things that would be very, very cool and very, very important to know, while at the same time fixating and focusing on stuff that's not important, characters that are not important, visuals that are not important, and a lot of bits and pieces of it that are just boring. This film is just kind of a bit of a mess in that regard, because
it doesn't seem to know what it wants to be.
Right.
Like, do you want to be a serious like film with a metaphorical twist? Do you want to be a fantastical? Spirited Away did this by being incredibly fantastical, but it had the moral driven. The girl was trying to get over change. It was a metaphor for change and overcoming change, but it also was a real thing she went through. This one kind of, I guess, attempts to do the same thing as that one did, but it doesn't do it. It's like they're copying their own stuff, but not well.
Yeah.
This film took
It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah, it took like 2 Studio Ghibli films, like basically Grave of the Fireflies and Spirited Away, and like mashed them together and took the worst parts of both and didn't do anything to justify their existence together.
Yeah.
It's odd. It's really odd. And it starts out so strong and builds the main character up, but then it just kind of fumbles through his progression. And even once he enters the other world, there's these long periods where nothing. Like, he comes into a graveyard and the pelicans attack, and he's like, don't go in that grave, and he doesn't say anything about it or why that's a problem. And then it goes,
yeah, what is the grave?
And
then all the spirits and stuff like that are rising up. Is that actual like souls that are coming out of this world?
Yeah, it's like those are going to become babies in your world. It's like, well, that seems like really important plot point.
So and then the entire world that they know crumbles into dust and existence. So does that mean that children no longer exist? Like, do babies no longer come?
So that was the thing.
Anywhere?
It ends so abruptly. Like, the world explodes, and he's like, it's been 2 years since the war ended. And it's like, okay.
And it just ends. And it just ends. It doesn't really do anything to be like, oh yeah, this world, this whole adventure, all this stuff, there's a callback or anything like that. No, it just kind of like, ooh, 2 years after the war's over.
The only thing that comes out of it is the kid learns to be able to call his stepmother mom. And that's done. Like, that's done, and then there's another 20 minutes of the film that like doesn't have anything to do with that at all.
It's more like 40. It feels like 40.
I don't know. It was weird.
It's so weird.
I say it's visually stunning. Like some of the animation, the transformations, the heron.
Yeah, the heron's really cool.
The heron was cool. He like switches kind of. He's like between a heron and like a person, and this is actually my thing that bothers me because they never really explain him, but they don't need to. What he is isn't as important as what his role is.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of background characters
get more time than he does.
Well, and
he's the main character, and by the end of the film, you still don't really know what his whole thing was. You're just like, oh,
that didn't actually bother me because it was done well. If they did that with the rest of the world, you don't really have to explain him. It's whimsical. The problem is they do explain some of it. Either like let it be whimsical and weird a little bit, or explain it. They did this halfway thing where they explained some things I didn't care about at all, like background stuff, like with the little white. If they had never explained what the little white things were, it would have actually been more interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, oh man, those things are cool. Oh, they're floating off. Well, that's neat. Where are they going? We don't know. They just go off into the. Oh, that's. Wow, that's a cool mystery. That's fine. We can move on. But it's like, no, they become babies. Well, that seems really important, and we're not talking about that anymore. Why mention it if you're not going to do anything with it? It doesn't go anywhere.
Well, yeah, exactly. Either it explains things that don't go anywhere, or
he
it
brought
doesn't
the pelicans here. He bought the parakeets here. Okay.
Did pelicans not exist in Japan before 1943? And then there's a lot of stuff that happens within the world that just never gets explained. Like, they literally take the time, they take the 3 to 5 minutes to explain, oh, these little jumbly things are souls, and they're flying up to the thing.
And then
the pelicans have to eat the things because there's not enough fish in the ocean for them to eat, so they eat human souls. And so
which is really interesting, and then they just ignore it for the rest of the film.
Well, exactly. It doesn't actually like end up going anywhere. So it's like at the end of the film, he's just like talking to the pelicans, and I'm just like, why would you talk to them? They eat souls. All of the birds in this film crave human flesh.
That's why I said before, it makes more sense if you just don't explain it at all. Because then when it ends, it's just a whimsical thing. Whimsical works if you don't explain it, but if you explain half of it, that's But the best way I can think about this in a way that makes sense to me and why it's so frustrating, it's like you have a recipe for making a meal and the recipe only explains some of the stuff. So it's like the recipe will say, take 6 cups of water and boil it. Okay, now put pasta in. What kind of pasta? It's like a drawing manual. What kind of pasta? How much? Now, drain pasta and put exactly 2 cans of peas in, 12-ounce cans of peas, and stir, and then put mayonnaise in. Oh, how much mayonnaise? Why are you only telling me half the ingredients?
DJ, if you actually ate a dish like that, we'd have to call like human rights groups or something. That's awful.
It's just weird that they explain pieces, but then other parts that don't matter, and it's like, well, they just skip. It'd be like in a Lego instruction manual where they only show you every other step.
And in intense detail.
Yeah, just exactly.
Yeah.
25 pages on how to set up the base, and then the next page is layer 5, and you're like, where's the rest of it? I don't know what.
Well, no, it shows the pictures of the thing, but doesn't explain what those things actually are. And that's the thing, is just this film just decides to explain things that don't need to be explained, and then there's things that happen in the film that I'm like, this would be way more interesting than finding out that the little bubble things are human souls. Like, the whole thing where it's like, he went into the delivery chamber. Why was she in the delivery chamber? Why did she go into
that was a
alternate
major
world?
plot problem, too.
And
she walks off into the woods, and he follows her, and then suddenly they're in the castle. It's like, well, she's in the delivery chamber. And I'm like...
And she hates you.
Yeah.
And she hates him for some reason.
Was there a middle part of this film? Like, it feels like... What it feels like, actually, and this is maybe part of the problem, is they actually had a 3-hour movie, and they cut the wrong hour out of it.
That actually could possibly happen. There could be another film that's out there that's literally the other half of this film, and it's a far better film.
Well, if they spend an hour of the film, pretty much, with him just confusing... Yeah, sorry. They spend an hour. An hour, like, confusingly having him walk into the distance or look at things. And then she walks into the woods, and then suddenly he's in there looking after her. I feel like there's this section where why she's there was pulled out of the film, and that was more interesting. They're like, well, we need to focus on the kid. It's like, okay, well, I want to know why she went in there. Why did she wander off? Why is she doing this? Is there more? It doesn't show a lot of her.
Yeah.
It seems to be the main point of the film is her and him reconciling their new relationship with each other.
Which doesn't really make sense because they seem to be like, he seems a little like standoffish, but reasonably so. But he still shows her respect. He's still kind to her. And he still goes whenever she asks.
And she's like being really like... But I wonder if there's a moment, like there was a fight they were supposed to get into or something.
Maybe.
Where like she's fronting, like she sees her sister in him, and that's why he resents him because it reminds her of her dead sister. Yeah. And so she's just putting on a front to be nice to him, even though she actually hates him. She doesn't want to, but she just feels it's a feeling. His side is shown very clearly that he doesn't know how to feel about her because it's like I still miss my mom. Like, this is too soon. I'm not ready to move on yet. And it's my aunt. Like, this is too... And she looks just like her. I don't know how to handle this.
Yeah.
That's handled actually pretty decently, except for it's drug a little... It's drug through the mud a little bit, but it's handled.
It's drug enough that it doesn't really feel like it's actually resolved.
Yes. But from her point of view, we don't know why she suddenly has goes into the other world and then has resentment. Yeah. We're left... His is explained and shown very well. And then hers is just left out of it. And then it's like, why does she hate him? They could have cut out a lot of the slowness in the beginning and put more of that and have them have tension. Like, have those two get tension. Yeah. Then, even as messy as the rest of the film is, it still could work better because the whole point is this world is full of malice. Yeah. Well, his malice is shown. He was just angry at the world, at himself. That he felt like it was his. He blamed himself for his mother's death. That's shown really well that he's just angry at the world, angry at God, angry at anyone he can be angry at, and he's just holding it in. Yep. But her malice isn't explained. If they had shown more of their intermalice with each other when it got into the other world, the chaos would have made more sense. Because it's like, okay, this world is chaotic, but it's based off of these two's relationship being rocky. He's now looking for her. That's where the chaos comes from. That would work. But as of now, we only get one side of the story, and then we only get hers after the fact.
And barely.
It's just really confusing. And the most fun in the film is right at the beginning when he's like going through his stuff and when it shows his progression. It takes way too long to do it, but when it shows it, that's really good. And then a lot of moments in the other world are just pretty and fun and whimsical, but it takes too long to get there. There's too many pauses in between moments of stuff happening that don't need to be there, and then when stuff is happening, we have no idea why. Yeah. Give a little bit more explanation as to why things are happening, and less to him just staring off into space. It's just
this film has
a lot
so
of
many
potential and just flustered it.
It's really one of those things where that happens a lot. It seems in the movies the last month has been amazing, enormous potential, and then poor writing.
Really, really good ideas that are poorly executed.
Yeah, it's poorly executed and the writing's not good. Like, it's not good writing because it doesn't explain the right things. It drags on things that don't matter. And also the dialogue.
It's squirrel writing.
Yeah.
They make a plot and a course and they keep looking over here. It's like this movie constantly looks off to the side. It's very Tolkien-esque, where like you describe this like great battle and then move on from that. Like, hey, I'd like to know more about that. Oh, we're done talking about that. Yeah. But that's all it is. All this film is, look over there. There's a great movie over there that we could be watching. But we're not going to. We're actually going to go over here. Oh, but look over there. There's another great movie that we could be watching. But we're not going to. And there's a thing that actually doesn't matter to this plot at all.
Let's focus on it for 10 minutes.
Yeah, there's not interesting, actually, nor does it matter to anything. But we're going to focus 20 minutes of the film to this. Well, now that we're done with that, we're never going to mention it or go back to it ever again. Well, right. Well, then why did you bring it up?
And now, here's the most important scene in the film. Oh, crap, we're out of time. Wrap it up.
That's exactly how it felt. When it gets to the end, you're like, this is finally getting interesting. It's over. What? Where's the rest of the movie? Listen, it feels like there's another...
Yeah, there's two films.
It feels like there's another half hour that should have come after this to give closure. And a little bit more detail earlier on that was cut out of this movie that should have been there. Because it ends.
It ends, and it ends very unsatisfying.
Yeah, I need you to fix this world. Okay. Nope, we're not doing that. Oh, the world's dead. Oh, it's gone. Oh, it's been 2 years. What the frick just happened? It wraps up in 5 minutes. It gives more, like... It shoves your brain full of, like, goop.
Goopy nonsense.
I'm done. I've had enough of it.
I am too. So yeah, just overall impressions of the film, not really worth it. There's a lot of potential that's left on the table. It needs better writing. It's just a trend lately.
Some of it could be translation dialogue, but even then,
it could be. But
even then, even if they change what people say, doesn't actually matter that much. What actually hurts this film is the long periods of nothing being said, shown, or happening.
Yeah. There's just a lot of issues. Anyway, if you don't want to have issues with knowing what films to go to in the theater, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Once again, we do this every week, and we try to pick films that we're interested in, but also are going to probably be the type of films people are going to go to in the theaters anyway, because let's just face it, we're a bunch of NPC normies. Anyway, like the video, let us know what you think in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.